the more time I've spent up there, the more time I've spent with these guys, it gives me complete confidence in what they're doing. Do you know what I mean? Absolute confidence in what they do. And you just think, we're at the start of something. Maybe too late this season, but we're start of something.
Sort of the way the Premier League, the team kind of aged together, really, didn't it? There perhaps were it wasn't whether it was financial side of things, because obviously it's difficult for Ipswich to compete in the Premier League even at that stage. A lot of you look at the team that played in the relegation season, it was a lot of the players that had come up a few years earlier, and most of you weren't in your early 20s at that point, were you? You were kind of.
Absolutely, and it was tough. It was really tough. No different from any team going up. Now you try to, and we had we had a really good season, or half of the season. Then it became more and more difficult, and it was second season. It was skin of the teeth job, wasn't it? It was another trip to Blackburn and getting a result, and our friend Mark Steen scoring that puts. Was it Sheffield United who went down?
Yeah, Sheffield United.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's really, really tight. And then we got, 3 seasons. And then you change the manager. And I think John tried to hand it over and maybe make a move upstairs and hand it over to Mick McGivern. And he was being helped by Paul Goddard and Johnny Walk for a while. And that didn't work. And then the club got George Burley in. And, it was, I'm pretty sure that at that stage, it was very, very difficult to be able to keep us up. And obviously he didn't. But then he went off and built all over again. And it was great when George came in, because he was a breath of fresh air. He was a bright young manager with an unbelievable history. And a new manager comes in after changing, new ideas. And George has a succession of number twos, didn't he? He had Dale Roberts, he had Tony Mowbray at the end, but he brought in John Gorman, he brought in Stuart Houston, brought in Brian Hamilton. Do you know what I mean? He had different coaches which freshened things up all the time. But at the end of the day, it was George's team, and George made the decisions. And he was another one at training. If you didn't work hard in training, you wouldn't get in his team. It was all about standards, high standards every day.
We spoke to George about his training drills, because Matt Holland spoken to us about it as well, and he practice the passing drills. Did you have any experience of Burley's passing drills?
Yeah, and we'd always do. We do passing drills in a square and all that. And if you didn't quite get it right, yeah, he'd be at you. He'd be constantly at you. But then we do these other sessions where it would go out to the right hand side. And whoever was right side, whether you're right midfield or right back, you'd be crossing and people would be finishing. And George would always go on the right-hand side. And unfortunately, he was still the best crosser of the ball. You know what I mean? And he would tell everyone he was the best crosser of the ball. And he would put so much pressure on. Do you know what I mean? And he was, he was an exceptional fullback in his day. But he loved, his enthusiasm for the game. And, he wanted high standards. And then, I obviously played under him, and then I finished in sort of 98, and then they went on, and 2 years later, he's built another really good team, and they deservedly got themselves in the Premier League as well and finished 5th.
You were obviously part of his plans, because you were Player of the Year in '96, his first full season, weren't you?
Yeah, I mean, and that's amazing to get Player of the Year at that sort of stage. So towards the end, after we got relegated from the Premier League, we had there was Milton, Matthew, Marshall, and Mason. Do you know what I mean? And the headline writers love to make fun of that or talk about the M force that we had at that time. But yeah, Matthew and Marshall came into the team, and they were totally different players, totally different characters, but they could both score. Paul Mason could score, and I could score, and that was an attacking. But yeah, to get Player of the Year from the supporters in 1996, after I've been there since 1987, it was amazing, absolutely amazing. And And then, you know, 2 years later, 97, 98 was my testimonial year after. And if someone would have said to me that you're going to sign a 1-year contract in 1987 and then finish in 97, 98 with a testimonial over, you know, 300 games playing in the Premier League, you know. Imagine that now. It's like taking someone from Bury Town now, Sudbury or Leiston or Needham Market, putting them into our team right now, and then 3 years later playing in the Premier League. You know, I look back and go, you know, wow, absolutely no regrets. Just enjoyed every minute, every single minute.
And your time at Ipswich obviously kept going in a different capacity. When did you start thinking about different roles as your player career was kind of winding down?
The big thing that I realised in my last year, which was my testimonial year, is that I'm a salesman, basically, because you know, I talk to people who've had testimonials before, and you can have, obviously you've got the game, you can have golf days, you can have dinners, and you know, it's an opportunity to host these types of events. And I teamed up with a guy, a friend of mine. We put a committee together, and I absolutely loved the commercial side. I loved the marketing side. I loved all the events, and that was for me when I started to really think about that. But it wasn't just me thinking about me doing that. David Sheepshanks was at all of my events as the chairman of the club at that time. And David Sheepshanks was also thinking of me moving forwards. And I didn't know that at that time, obviously, because I was still playing. But after a really successful testimonial year, which was my last season, I sat down with David Sheepshanks and he said, look, you know, you may be able to go somewhere else for a year and play for a year. He said, but, you know, I'm looking to sit down with you because I don't want you to leave. You've been a big part of the club. And David and I joined the club in the same year. So he joined the board in 87. I joined the playing staff. And when I finished in 97, 98, David is now the chairman. And my career is finished. So we've known each other for 11 years, basically. And we sit down and he worked out a job and said, look, listen, I really want you to stay. And I thought long and hard about it, whether or not I want to continue playing and go somewhere else. And, you know, maybe going down the road to Colchester, which is a very, very busy route these days, or Cambridge, or just thinking about playing on somewhere else. But in the end, I probably took about a month to 6 weeks off and then took the job. And then at the same time, the academy was starting. So I was working part in the academy. I was going with the community department, going into schools. The community trust at that time was coaching in loads and loads of schools. We're doing assemblies, you know, and gaining more and more fans at that time. So my transition on the field to off the field was quite a smooth one. But little did I know that David Sheepshanks had this plan for quite some time, in having someone who's just finished on the field to be able to support the club and do the things, because David Sheepshanks was a very outgoing and he would support all sorts of events. And I began to realise that when he would get invited left, right and centre, and for the ones that he couldn't go to, I went. I became the person at the club at that time, which, you know, I certainly didn't mind doing because that was my job now. And I learned a lot from David Sheepshanks.
And a man with a vision as well. You know, a lot of Town fans probably think too much about the end of, you know, toward the relegation season in 01-02 and how that came to pass. But there was that 3-year plan where your kind of playing career is kind of ending and your roles off the field start. That must have been a really exciting time to be working off the field and behind the scenes, because, as you say, academy developing there, George Burley building something on the pitch as well. It's definitely kind of galvanised the community and the club together, didn't it, towards that promotion in 99, 2000?
Yeah, without a doubt. You know, there's always, you know, there's, like, John Lyle was amazing, but at the end, it was horrible. Do you know what I mean? There's when every manager, Mick McCarthy, I thought, was unbelievable. You know, the amount over the years and what he did and how he kept it going with no budget and no help, really. Do you know what I mean? But at the end, it was horrible. When people leave football clubs, it's normally horrible. Do you know what I mean? And yeah, you know what David and George achieved together, and what David achieved and his plan, like you said, the academy had just come in, and you know that was getting the new training ground and setting all that. You know, like I said, I learned a lot from him. I learned a lot. I learned in probably in three or 4 years off the field between sort of 98 to 2002. I'd seen a team go up. I'd seen playoff final. I'd seen commercial stuff. I'd been involved in people buying tickets for the playoff final at Wembley, queuing. You'll see them. They all love telling everybody that, you might say, I was in the queue for 6 hours to get my Wembley tickets, and someone else say, well, I was in the queue for 9 hours. You know what I mean? It just, everybody remembers that time and what it was like. And I remember the queue, when the queue got down to the main drive, as people were coming into the ticket office. I remember going out with cups of tea for just normal fans, so got an understanding of what it was like and how important the football club is to the whole community of Suffolk when it's going well. Nothing else. There's some unbelievably successful businesses in Suffolk, but none of them can do what the football club can do when the football club is successful. None of them can engage a population, kids at school, and that's why it's been frustrating over many, many years. But, I'm 100% sure that the corner's turned.
Yeah. And of course, after David Sheepshanks, we come to the Marcus Evans era, and we haven't mentioned some of the managers. Joe Royal, obviously, you were around the club then. You were around the club with Jim when he was manager. Roy Keane, I'm sure there's a few stories from these characters that you've got to tell.
Well, yeah, I mean, because you work with, over the years, football's quite small, quite a small industry. Everybody knows everybody. But I didn't know Joe till he came, and when Joe came in and Willie Donaghy, Joe was just he was a like John Lyle, because you're very experienced and got on well with all of them, all of the players, whether you're a young player, senior player, the way he dealt with people, But he would let Willie Donaghy do everything. So in the morning, the lads would come in, get dressed and changed and all that, get the strappings on, see the physio and all that, and you wouldn't see Joe yet. My office was at the academy at that time. The lads had gone out training. He'd say, come on. So we'd have a cup of tea in the dining area, me and Joe chewing the fat and all that. And then about 10:30, he'd step out the door and Dick, the caretaker, would have his golf buggy ready. And he'd go and drive his golf buggy and park it by the side of training and just watch. Do you know what I mean? Let Willie do it. Then up he'd get and he'd come alive. He was a match day manager. He had complete trust in Willie Donaghy, complete trust. And he'd go out there with training and all that, and then he'd come alive at the weekend, and people wanted to play for him, and he liked his attacking football. So he was great. And then it was funny because then when Joe's on his way, Jim Magilton left at the end of that season. He's had this big party. We've bought him a load of presents, and then 5 minutes later, he comes back as the manager. You know what I mean? It was just strange, and I think David Sheepshanks had a vision about getting Jim Magilton with David's help. Do you know what I mean? To maybe let's make him into a bright young manager, because he loved the game. He was infectious. But equally, it was difficult. It was difficult to come from the dressing room with all your mates and everything, and then all of a sudden you've got their careers in the palm of your hand. So your relationship with those players, it changes. And I thought, had he been the manager for longer, I think he could have become a really good manager. I remember saying to him, "Now you're a manager. There's times, Jim, where you've got to just bite your lip and count to 10. And he said to me, I'll try 5. he knew that his fuse was very short, but he was good. He was good at, you think of those players that were coming through, those young players like Ambrose and Bowditch and Benty at that time. It was no different from when, towards the end of my career, You know, we see Kieran pop in earlier. Do you know what I mean? At the end of my career, I'm one of the senior players that is looking and thinking this is a good player here. You know, this, and we're helping him right the way along. And then all of a sudden, you're getting left out, and Kieran Dyer's playing. You know, it's the transition of football. You know, there's always someone coming behind you. Do you know what I mean? Always someone. And I think Kieran's gone on record saying that the senior players during, you know, periods of his career when he's first coming involved, you know, helped him immensely. And you need that. It's the same anywhere now. Same, you know, young players coming through, and so we did have that. But yeah, I've got to say, I was disappointed when Jim left.
Can I just ask very quickly, Simon? Like Ipswich fans, and particularly around that era, very much bought into the Ipswich way. You know, Jim Magilton's appointment as manager, I think he spoke about that as well. Is that something that you buy into, that at that time that existed and may have existed obviously before then? And did you feel like going into the Marcus Evans era at the end of Jim's tenure into Roy Keane, that started to wane away a little bit?
And that was a massive change. You know, that the club changed massively. The club was run by a board for all the years I played. You know, whether it was run by a red wine drinking board or, you know, or a board of businessmen, you know, it was a board, and they made those decisions, and the manager would go and present to the board about his targets and his contracts and his finances, and the board would say yes or no to whatever signings, you know. And the board was led by, when I was there, Patrick Cobbold after John Cobbold, then John Kerr after that, and then David Sheepshanks after that. And so, you know, it was run by a board. And the Ipswich Way, well, you know, John Lyle, you could say that he made us play in the West Ham way, because they played in a system, and he's come from there. But the West Ham way was like the Ipswich way. It was, you know, let's play. And then after that, when George come back, you're certainly going to play the Ipswich way when George is there. And Jim Magilton was a complete footballer, so he was going to play a certain way. And because he'd been promoted from within and played a lot of games for us and been involved in a lot of good stuff for us, you know, I think he was going to play that way. And then all of a sudden, Marcus Evans comes in, and there's no board anymore. You know, there's no decisions to be made by the board. It's all made by, you know, the manager and the owner. The owner would say what the budget is, and so it was a total change. And you know, then a big appointment when Roy came in, and you know, really difficult time, because you know, we had money and we had this and we had that, and everybody expected us to be successful. We had the highest profile manager out there, and it didn't work.
And at that time as well, you know, the academy is a big part of this kind of Ipswich way as well. I mean, I'm skipping ahead a little bit, but 2013, you're spearheading this academy vision. I think the target was 50% of the first team squads made up from academy players by 2018, I guess it would have been. And Kieran's involved in that publicity campaign. Liam Manning's one of the coaches he's speaking to, and what a great career he's having with MK at the moment. What was your sense of Marcus Evans' buy into the academy? Because there was a Category 2 investment, which is great, but we always wanted Category 1. How did you feel? Because you were quite pivotal in the academy at that time.
Yeah, I mean, the Ipswich have always produced players, haven't they? They've always had players, whether they've recruited really well or produced players from the minute the academy started. And there's something about, you know, someone coming through, like, you know, like Dazelle did, like, you know, like Chris Kiwomya. Chris Kiwomya came through the youth system, but he wasn't a local. He's come from Bradford. He's come from Yorkshire. And then you've got the likes of Ambrose and Bent and Bowditch and Bramble and Dyer that coming through, and Richard Wright and James Scowcroft. So we have a track record of producing sort of good players throughout our academy. And it was a successful academy. But it's at the end of the day, it's all about investment. And whilst we were producing players for the amount of money we were spending, people were spending more money. without a shadow of a doubt, people were spending so much more money. And people, clubs then started to think, yes, they wanted to be in Category 1. The Category 1 clubs were spending more and more and more. And what they started to do, Category 1 clubs, the way that I saw it is, they would go and buy the best 14-year-old they can from a Category 2 or Category 3 club. So as well as producing their own, they would also go and buy a 14-year-old. And the clubs in the lower academies will get compensation. But part of the job now, these these clubs now, that's what they have. They have budgets to go and buy, you know, if they're producing their own under 13s. But if someone who lives, you know, someone's an hour away and you can just take a player, you know, look, when Ben Knight went to Man City, he was without doubt the best young player in the country at that stage. And, you know, you probably know more. I'm not sure what year he left, but he's probably been at Man City 5 years now, hasn't he? 5 or 6 years, you know. And whether or not he turns into, you know, a top player in their first team or not, it just shows you that that's what their investment in him. And that's what I saw was different from what we tried to do with our academy. We didn't have a budget to go and buy players. You would think if Ipswich wants to be a Category 1, you can go and buy the best player from Cambridge or Peterborough or Colchester United or Southend, you know, and that was a way. But we never really had the money to do that. So I think that was frustrating. And other clubs were spending more and more on their academy, and we wasn't. And I'm not saying that Marcus, you know, neglected the academy, but he certainly could have. He certainly could have invested more. But I think when his first big appointment was Roy, his first big transfer window was that summer, and I think he got his fingers burnt.
Yeah,
you know,
and yeah.
And yes, he did spend a lot of money to start with. And actually, when he first came in, we were big players in that division, weren't we? But gradually, over the time that Marcus was in charge, Ipswich became smaller and smaller players because the division got richer and richer around him. Why do you think he continued to own the club when it was clearly getting harder every year for Town to compete?
You know, he owned the club for such a long time, and I spent a lot of time with Marcus. And you know, I sat in his box at the end of games or in the second half, where we're all with Charlie Woods, we're high-fiving each other for wins, and you know, so he really enjoyed the wins. But I don't know, he never, whether or not he never grasped the massive job that was needed to run the club on a day-to-day basis, you know. And he never employed experts at the top of the football club, you know. And that's you need experts. You need experts right the way across, you know, the football club. You need experts in the coaching side, managerial side, but you need experts everywhere for your club to move forward. And then you know, and obviously you need finance. You know, because you can have a great idea. There's not many great ideas that don't cost anything. You know, most of the great ideas come with a price tag attached. But for the good of the club and the long term of the club, and most of the people who are fully qualified to run the club properly come with a big price tag. And I think that put him off as well. Yeah. So, you know, if you look back at how long did he have the club? 13 years.
13 years, yeah.
Yeah. And, you know, it's, you know, people are looking back now and, you know, he was investing all sorts of money and all sorts of managers. And we're in a division below now, getting 25,000 at home. We got some belief back. We've got some, you know, we've got a strategy, we've got a plan, we've got people, you know, and that's that, you know, you look at that and you think these people, the people who are coming to the games now who haven't been for a while, either fell out of love with the club at some stage or, you know, whatever, couldn't see where it was going, couldn't see a plan. And now all of a sudden, maybe they're more engaging now, they can see a plan. We've got a bright young manager who, you know, who answers every question, without making it about him.
Yeah, isn't rude to me all the time in press conferences.
he just answers the question. And, you know, over the years, I mean, I go to football with a group of guys now since I'm not, you know, I've obviously worked off the field for years and worked on a match day. Now I go with a group of guys and we watch the games. And we would go for, you know, something to eat before the game, go to the game, and maybe the game wasn't great, but there was a group of people who got together. And you think you just wish for a team. You turn up on a Saturday, you see a team that is fully fit, 100% committed to the job that they're doing, will run through brick walls for the manager. The manager explains why he's picked the team. After the game, if we win, tell us why we won or your thoughts on it. If we lose, be open and honest about what went wrong and how we got beat by the better team, whatever, but just be open and honest. And that's what I feel this guy has done. He's an absolute breath of fresh air, and you can see people enjoying it. And yeah, and long may that continue.
So you've met Kieran. You were up the training ground the other day. You and James Scowcroft and Mick Mills, I think, was there as well, wasn't he? One or two others. And you had a lot of the ex-players went up the club to meet Mark Ashton and some of his staff a few weeks ago. What have you made to the sort of on-field and off-field side of the kind of new ownership?
Yeah, we're not the first group of former players, though, to be invited up to the training ground or to something. You know, it's happened in the past. It happened under recent managers before, but it absolutely never went anywhere. So, you know, sometimes you got to look and go, right, is this a publicity exercise? Or do they really? So I'd had a couple of meetings with Mark Ashton, one with Matt Holland, and we were talking about how he wants to engage and he wants to, you know, speak to, you know, we are the history, the past, and there's so much great history in past. And he said, I'm thinking that we want to organise a dinner where we have, you know, myself and Mike O'Leary and Kieran and his team, and then we have a group of different eras of you guys where we come and have a relaxed dinner. So he asked Matt and I to put together a group of former players to come and do it, and we did it. We went to the Players' Lounge, and it wasn't us. It wasn't them telling us. It was like a mixed table. Everybody split up, and then Mike O'Leary did a presentation about who owns the club, how they bought it, negotiating with Marcus, and this is where they are now, whether it's the Americans, the pension fund, what these guys are doing. And then after that, Mark Ashton did a presentation about the club, the strategy, about the first team, the academy, the community, the commercial side, the supporters, and just one, you know, and then the operations, basically the stadium, the training ground, and, you know, their vision about what they want to do. And, you know, they've taken them 6 months to look into everything that they need to do. And it was, you know, it was excellent. And then after that, Kieran McKenna stood up and talked about his vision of football. And, you know, Kieran McKenna's a young man. And you've got Butcher and Mills and Osman and Walker, and, you know, and he came alive. And he was so respectful about the people in the room. And we also had some younger players like at Alan Lee there, James Scowcroft, Darren Bent, Darren Ambrose, you know, Brian Hamilton, myself, as you said. And it was just a group of former players that the new manager was just explaining, not just, I'm going to go out and recruit the best players I can find. I'm going to go and recruit players that I think are going to fit into the way that we play. But I'm not going to go and recruit a 28, 29-year-old centre-half from a championship club if it's going to affect the development of Luke Wolfenden. That he wants to improve the group, recruit players, improve the group, and he wants to build. You know, that was what he was talking about, like building, looking at what we've got and making them better. And the only way to make players better is to, you know, get them believing in you and training every day. So, you know, the three presentations were excellent. And then following that, you know, Kieran was talking about coming up to this training ground. So that's why we said, right, then we're going to put this into a structure. Because if the manager says, oh, you're more than welcome to turn up at any time, no one's going to go. Because you're not going to turn up at any time. You know, He might turn up on a Friday morning when they got beat and there's all sorts going on. What is he doing here today? So we said, right, we'll take that. And that's why we put the structure in place. And unfortunately, two of the guys who were coming, Russell got COVID. And Darren Ambrose got called into TalkSport because it was during Cheltenham. And everybody, the normal presenters at TalkSport were all at Cheltenham. So, but we're going to continue to do that. And when we went up there the other day, James Cockcroft and I had, 45 minutes with the manager before we went out to watch training. And then we chatted about, everything, results, and between now and the end of the season. And then we watched them. There was a under-23 stroke first team game against Luton behind closed doors, and it was great to be involved. And also, the more time I've spent up there, the more time I've spent with these guys, it gives me complete confidence in what they're doing. Do you know what I mean? Absolute confidence in what they do, and you just think, we're at the start of something. Maybe too late this season, but we're start of something. Do you know what I mean? And it just looked like the whole group are together and getting ready. Do you know what I mean? I think the strategy was just to win every game between now and the end of the season, because the minute you start getting beat, your strategy's finished, isn't it? So it's a shame. But I can't believe how close we've been on the run that we've had, and we're still ninth.
That's crazy, isn't it?
It's unbelievable, isn't it? It's absolutely unbelievable with the run. Normally other teams would fall apart, but they haven't, have they? The teams above us have continued with their runs as well, which has made it difficult for us to make any headway. Bearing in mind, we've had I don't know, you're the stats people, but we've lost a couple, haven't we, in 15 games?
Yeah, I think broadly averaging 2 points a game since he took over in mid-December. So yeah, it's extraordinary. I know that's something you said just now, the kind of parallel of 91-92, really, that the crowds are coming back and that sort of belief is growing, and getting a manager in who fans believe in, who the players believe in, who gets the team playing in a particular way, and the fans have bought into as well, and getting results. And as you say, it's probably not going to be this year now. It's their 91-92 is going to be next season, we would hope.
Well, yeah, but see, they'll go into next season with all of this.
Yeah.
Here we go. Because we can, as Ipswich Town fans, we can get carried away like the rest of them, can't we? Do you know what I mean?
In League One, our expectation
should be
promotion. Exactly. Yeah. It's never going to be anything else.
But I like the way the manager manages. I like the way he handles himself. I like the way he handles. There was remind me what the game, the last game where the fullback lost it, our fullback with against Portsmouth.
Thompson,
yeah, with the Cowleys on.
Yeah.
Throwing, yeah.
So everyone went mental, apart from our manager.
Yeah. Who apologised to Cowley as well, didn't he?
It's very emotional. Very. Do you know what I mean? And not a problem. Because there was people losing it at that stage. And football's an emotional game. We've all lost it at certain times. But he just completely kept his head. And you can just see, like I said, when I was up the training ground there, it was a great atmosphere up there. The only thing strange, obviously, that's just come out is Kieran deciding to leave. He's we've been friends for absolutely years, and he's got a lot to offer. I mean, the amount of quotes and things that have come out from youth team players and players that he's helped during his time shows you that he's a great coach. He cares about people, and it will be interesting to see his next chapter. And I know we all know that he's recovering, and he's waiting for more medical tests and an operation, and so once that comes, I think he's going to have a lot to offer the game. because he's got a lot of knowledge, got a lot of ideas, and you know, in the future, get himself the opportunity to put them into practice.
You mentioned his next chapter after Ipswich Town. Your next chapter after Ipswich Town, I think is it 5 years or 4 years since you left town now?
2017, yeah, 5 years.
5 years, yeah. So yeah, sort of pictures where you're at that point. Tell us where you're at that point, and when the offer of this new role with Futurestars came about.
In 2017, I was frustrated. I thought we're going nowhere. We're going absolutely nowhere. Mick's the manager. I've got a great relationship with Mick, and I'm running the commercial side of the academy, and we're in all sorts of. We're doing some great events. I started all these cycle rides, and you know, for a period, 3 or 4 years, you know, we raised over £300,000 for prostate cancer and the academy and the friends of the trust at that stage. So there's some good stuff going on, but as a club, it was coming towards the end of Mick's tenure. Fans were getting frustrated. Mick was getting frustrated. Financially, you know, we're full of loans, and it wasn't a great time. Having said that, I thought I'd never leave. I thought, this is me. I'll be at this club for the rest of my life. I'll finish here. You know, it's my club. I've been here. Well, that was 30 years. But I got invited by a guy to help him set up a project in Africa in 2015. And he became an academy sponsor. And that meant that I could go out to Africa and help him. And I helped him set up a project based around education and sport. So it was giving something back to the local community. So it was that company's, and it was called the OMA Group. It was that company's corporate social responsibility project, which they needed, which I designed for them with some other guys in Africa. So I went out in 2015, and I've been to Ghana before, but I really enjoyed it. I went back later, 2015. We employed 2 coaches. We chose 5 schools. Our coaches are going in, delivering PE. They're doing sports in the morning, sports after school. And the schools that we worked in had no PE teachers, no kit, no equipment. Just PE was basically open the door, let them out, bring them back in again. So we had a structure, and it became really successful quickly. So I did it again. I went back in 2016, and then we got another company involved. So instead of just delivering CSR for one company, another company said, we'd like to be involved in that. Can we be involved in that? And I said, yeah, of course you can. So it made me think that we're delivering a CSR project for one company and now 2. Why can't we deliver it for 10? So more people we get, more finance we get, more good we can do. So I then sent them a proposal saying, this is what you should do. Turn the project into a charity, and invite all the other companies you work with to come and use this charity project as your CSR, which means you don't have to employ a CSR. You don't have to have a big budget. You just agree a budget, and we do it all for you. So obviously they really liked that idea. But when I put the proposal in, it didn't include me. It was just what I think they should do, you know. And then in 2017, you know, they had a big board meeting and said, look, listen, we really like this idea. And one of the guys who works for a Malaysian oil company just said, get the footballer to do it. Do you know what I mean? It was like that. Get the footballer, get him to run it, get him, you know. And so the guy who took me out to Ghana in the first place, who's a big Ipswich Town fan, and is effectively my boss, and he is the chairman of the charity, sort of went, he's been at Ipswich for 30 years, you know. I can't see him, you know, I can see him being involved. And then we went for lunch and we started talking about it, and, you know, would I ever consider? And it was a dark time at the club at the time. I couldn't see where we were going. But I loved the club, and, you know, but I didn't love my job anymore. So, you know, I resigned, and, you know, I resigned to the people in charge at the time, including Marcus. And Marcus rang me, you know, like straight away. You know, I thought you you know, I thought you were going to be here forever. We always talked about you. I said, yeah, so did I. I said, but I'm not happy. You know, I'm not enjoying what I'm doing. And, you know, I love the club. I love football, but I'm not enjoying what I'm doing. This opportunity has come along. And, you know, I've made my mind up. And here we are now, after 2 years of COVID in the middle, but, you know, 5 years on, we got 5,000 kids. I got 4 staff, 2 apprentices, and, you know, we've got kit and equipment coming from Arsenal and Brighton, and we've got stuff that we could only dream about doing. We've got 7 or 8 companies now around the outside who all have bought into the vision that I had to put the charity in the middle, and we have UK events. We've got, you know, but the majority of our funding comes from companies in the oil and gas industry and logistics and marine industry, based around the shipping company that I'm actually employed by, delivering CSR for people. And we've got great contacts in the British High Commission, because once you go into a country, first time we went into a country, I took Terry Butcher as well in 2017 with Titus, and the British High Commissioner is a man, well, he's Scottish, so he knew who Terry Butcher was. So we went to have tea with the High Commissioner. Me and Titus waited in the car. Terry Butcher, the England captain and former Rangers captain, who invited, and then following, we got to know the High Commissioner. We've done cycle rides with it, you know, and it just grew, and it grew so well that, you know, it's just really, it become a massive part of my life. And on a normal year, I'd spend 3 months in Ghana, so I'd like to go every other month for 2 weeks. So 6 weeks here, then go back again. And I'll probably go once a quarter this year, and then next year back to every other month. Now the travel has all opened up again. But yeah, it's amazing being part of something that is the most rewarding thing you'll ever do. And you know, we're working with, we've got 7 schools we work with. We're talking about 5,000 kids, and you know, there's thousands and thousands of schools. And we can't help everyone, but we can make a difference to, you know, the groups of the kids that are with us. We've got 2 18-year-olds we've just taken on as our like apprentices, but we've known them since they were 11 and 12. So they're now coming to work with us, putting through their coaching qualifications so they can coach for us. They can become our next full-time employees when they come to an age. And that's why, you know, but because I think the club is in, you know, a totally different place from the day I left to where it is now. Unbelievable. Hence, I'm back at the club, not working for the club, but I've done events for the club. I did the 81 dinner. I'm going to do the end of season dinner, and we're doing a joint fundraising cycle ride with the community trust, because, you know, the club needs a decent community trust. And I remember being at the club when they got rid of the community trust. It was beyond belief that, you know, we became probably one of the only clubs in the country that didn't have a community trust or a charitable trust. But decisions like that were just being made, and without thinking about the long-term consequences of I don't know, 7 or 8 years of coaches going into schools, breeding new fans of the future.
And it's crazy to think. Sorry, Simon.
No, go on.
It's crazy to think of, you know, the catchment area of Ipswich and Suffolk and East Anglia as well. It's not like you've got masses of football clubs here on our doorstep. You've got the guys up the road and a few we've talked about. The opportunity here for the club, both in terms of academy, but education, getting people turning up on a match day, is huge, isn't it? Absolutely.
The biggest, you know, and that's where you come from. And like you said, we are, you know, I was talking to Kieran McKenna about it the other day. We were talking about when he's in the middle of Manchester. If he goes an hour anyway, there's like 20 clubs, and then there's a dozen rugby league clubs. Do you know what I mean? So whereas you come around here and you got to go over an hour to Norwich. You got Colchester. You got Cambridge nearly an hour away. You know, we have this community, and the best thing to do is make the most of it. And every kid should want to grow up being an Ipswich, you know, Every parent should be, you know, because we're the local club, we're in this area, and our coaches are in your schools. Our badges going in your schools, and we're waving that flag, and we're inviting you to games, and we're doing community stuff, and it should be massive. And instead of going like that over the years, it's gone like that, and now they've got a job to start fighting against, because there's a lot of other academies out there now, and the non-league football clubs in this area are excellent. You know, I said before, Bury Town, Sudbury, Needham Market, Felixstowe, Stowe Market, Leiston. You know, they've all got academies now. They've got youth systems. And what, you know, you would think Ipswich Town being the best club in this area, if Needham Market find a 14-year-old they think is amazing, they should be pushing that straight to Ipswich Town, because it's the biggest club, and they should all be feeder clubs for us. And that's gone missing. So it's something that needs to be totally rebuilt so that we can have future superstars in the first team that come from Stowmarket and Woodbridge and Bury Town, and do you know what I mean? And Thetford, yeah,
bringing things full circle. I mean, just talk to us about the June. You've got another cycling event. It's kind of bringing your two worlds together, isn't it? Ipswich Town and Futurestars in one place. Sounds exciting.
Yeah, one of the big things I do is if I do a fundraising event here in the UK, I don't take all the money out to Ghana. I normally work with another charity. So whatever money we raise, 50% of it will stay in Suffolk and 50% will come to Africa. So we've got a lot of people who want to support both charities. So we merge together for this event. Cycling event. Haven't done a cycling event since 2017. Whereas we did loads before. We did London to Amsterdam with prostate cancer. But this is the Tour of Suffolk, which we did before in 2017. Now, I didn't want to go out of the country because of any COVID issues and wanted to do something this summer. So that's why we decided to do the Tour of Suffolk again, which is 75 miles a day for 2 days. Go up the middle of Suffolk from Ipswich, start and finish at Ipswich Town. Go up right up to the Hopton. We stay at Potters overnight, and then we come all the way back down the coast. So we go Southwold, Aldborough, right the way down Thorpeness, and then come back into Ipswich, raising money for both charities. So we've got 100 places. So straight away we've got, you know, Russell Osman is signed. He's keen cyclist. Terry Butcher, Matt Holland, who just phoned me while we were on here. He's obviously a trustee now. So the club have made Matt Holland a trustee for the community trust. It's a great move. So Matt's obviously I've cycled with Matt before, so you know straight away you've got those guys involved, and then we're opening it out to everyone, all the people who cycled before, and yeah, we're trying to raise money for both charities. Nobody has had any type of charitable events basically over the last few years because of the COVID and getting people together. So this is our main fundraising event in the UK this year. And yes, there's places available. If you go onto the Ipswich Town website or the Trust website, you know, you'll be able to find your way through, look through social media, because we're plugging it. We're trying to fill the spaces as much as we can. It's on the 12th and 13th of June. Like I said, it includes overnight accommodation. We've got support teams traveling with us. We have lunch at Green King pubs. We've got the East of England Co-op supplying all of our snacks and fruit. We've got volunteers coming. We've even got, as you come into Aldborough, we've got a quick trip to Fisher's Gin. So we thought we'd do that at the tail end rather than at the start. But yeah, and listen, we've done these cycle rides before. You meet amazing people. A lot of people who've been on the rides before have continued to ride together. Some of them are doing business together, but we've had, you know, great support vehicles, loads of people helping out. And yeah, you know, we want a day like this. We want a couple of days like this where the weather is nice and people absolutely love it. So yeah, really looking forward to doing that. I'm back to Ghana in May, so I'll be in Ghana before that. But yeah, this will be our biggest event of the year, and yeah, really looking forward to it.
Brilliant stuff. And our pod friend David Diamond is very passionate about his cycling and very much enjoyed the events he was involved in. So do get involved. Is it at Milts25 is your Twitter but yeah, website and all that kind of stuff? You can find the details there as well.
Yeah, on the Community Trust website, because we're working with them. and that gives them that organisation behind us. They've got big accounts departments and everything else like that. So, but I was at Potter's on Monday, just checking it out, just having a meeting with them. They can't wait, and because we had such a good time before, Potters don't really do one nights anymore, but they will for a group of charity, raising cyclists. So it was brilliant to go and meet them, and we all turn up at Potters. We do dinner, bread and breakfast. We have overnight. We have presentations. The people who's done something really good or really bad on day one. And we always do we've got sponsors. We've got a company that sponsors the Ashford Riot, sponsored the front of the shirt, so everyone wears the same shirt. It becomes part of a group that everybody travels together. So it had a lot of good to come out of it, and it's good money raised going to all charities. And in certain ways, the charities do similar things, because the community trust goes into schools and coaches kids for free. Some of the most underprivileged schools and charities, they go and support, and basically that's what we do out in Africa. So it's good to work together with them, and in the future, I think the community trust are going to set up some volunteering opportunities where people can volunteer with them, through them, and come to Ghana with us and come work in our schools.
Brilliant. That's amazing.
Great it is.
Fantastic. Phil, any more bits and pieces that you want to cover before we...
I think we've covered an enormous amount.
So much.
Yeah.
A 30-year career.
Yeah, I know.
And then beyond.
Yeah. But no, it's been a pleasure. I'm really glad to do it. Thanks for getting me on. An amazing year in '92. Do you know what I mean? Something that people are never going to forget. And just being part of it, and then thinking about the people who made it happen with us. Special year.
Yeah. And some exciting stuff coming up in the future as well. So, on behalf of everyone watching, firstly, thank you so much for everything you contributed to Ipswich Town, and continue to do so as well. It's great seeing what you did with Titus in Ghana as well. At Milts25 on the Twitter. If you're not already following Simon, please do that. And thank you so much for your time and for so much insight as well. Really appreciate it.
No, it's a pleasure. And just lastly, obviously Titus is our ambassador, and he's working out in Abu Dhabi at the moment. But that guy, what he's given to the charity in time and effort is unbelievable. And they absolutely, our coaches. The kids absolutely love him. He was in Ghana for 7 months in 2021, working with our guys sort of every single day, and it came about for him at the right time as well. Because he'll tell you how much he gets out of it as well. It's just amazing, and the amount of people that we've met. So hats off to him, and I'm dragging him back for the cycle ride. Yeah, so he can pull us all along.
Good stuff. Simon, thank you so much.
Pleasure.